We're calling this Five Nations Ignite. And during this section, they're leaving already, we have representatives from not just Scotland, not just one or two of the countries around the UK and Ireland, but all five. So I'd like to welcome up to the stage, as I explain what we're about to do, Paul Fell, representing England. Come and take a seat, Paul. Carl Powell, representing Wales. David Henley from Ireland. John Wright from Northern Ireland. And our very own Colin Crookston from Scotland. Gentlemen. So let me, this all of a sudden is sounding quite adversarial, isn't it? It wasn't meant to be at all. But let me lay out the rules of engagement, and then I'll move out of the way and leave you in the hands of these gentlemen. Ignite is a format for communicating great ideas succinctly. So the idea here is that each of these gents has prepared a presentation. Each of them is a pioneer in their own right in the field of pre-hospital, out-of-hospital cardiac arrest resuscitation. They're from ambulance services around the UK and the Republic of Ireland, and they've got a story to tell. What we've told them is they've got to tell that story in 20 slides, and each slide will come up for 15 seconds and then automatically advance. So they're getting 5 minutes to tell the story of their pioneering exploits. So without further ado, can I introduce your first Five Nations Ignite presenter, Paul Fell.
Good afternoon. Hello. Can you hear me? So this is me then. So we're looking at the English model, but obviously I'm not here from all of England, so this is the Geordie model. So this is the Newcastle-based Geordie model. This is me, so consultant paramedic, but also the chair of the lead paramedic group for the College of Paramedics. And hopefully this is moving on. So we know that we've got about 60,000 out-of-hospital cardiac arrests, and we know that survival rate's about 8.4%. And that's a good survival rate, but in our area it's certainly not that good. And we know that we're not at that 8.4%, and in fact our January figures were really, really low, at about 2%. So we know that we've talked about Norway and North Holland and Seattle, which we've mentioned a number of times today, and then the best UK service, whether that's London or Yorkshire or whichever month it happens to be, and then there's us. So we came here, we spent a lot of time in Edinburgh looking at what they did with their 3RU, how they managed that service, and then we took some of that away to how we're going to work in the North East, and how we would work forward with that. So we also went to look at what Victoria did. I didn't go, somebody else in my team went, which is quite disappointing. So it started in 1971. We know that they do an expanded scope of practice, including RSI and inotropes and nasogastric tubes. So what could we learn from that? How could we move forward? So I borrowed a car from Ops. I rang them up one day and said, can I get a car? I want to use it for a couple of days. 2 years later, I've still got a car in the car park. They've never asked for it back. They keep coming and changing it and cleaning it and doing all the things for it, but they've never taken it back off me. It's not a commissioned service, so it worked quite well. So it's a number of senior paramedics. We've got 2 or 3 FEM doctors on there. We're based in Newcastle. We respond to a 19-minute response. We only work daytime at the moment because we all do it in our own time. So although we're at work, all of our training's there, it's all done in our own time. This is our scope of practice. So we are doing cardioversion, pacing, inotropes, nasogastric tubes, ultrasound, so we're using quite a lot of ultrasound, point of care testing with the iStat machines, mechanical CPR, and we've just started sedation. So we'll push everybody through a Sphere course. We push everybody through the ultrasound course, which is run by the North East. We put everybody through a pre-hospital anaesthetics course, an assistant course through our air ambulance, and we use mechanical CPR. We train weekly, so we do a weekly session, and then we also do monthly sessions, which are a bit longer, and we do a CPR assessment, intubation assessment, and an assistant RSI every month, and we have to pass that. We use a QCPR through Liadl, and if you don't get above 75%, you're off the unit. You get a chance to resit, but then you're off the unit. We use mechanical CPR, which I mentioned. We're part of the paramedic trial, so we've got quite a few Lucases, and we're also using autopulse. Both of them are on the car, and sometimes that's a personal preference. We do use checklists, so some of the stuff we've learned from medicine is that we can't always remember it. So we use checklists for cardiac arrest to make sure we've gone through everything, and then we've got a checklist for post-ROSC as well, just to make sure that we pick it all up. I mentioned ultrasound earlier, so we use the V-scan. It's quite effective for us for sort of PA arrests and making sure that you see what the heart's doing. Everybody's gone through that formal training, and it works really well. We've picked up quite a few PA arrests that we're not picking a pulse up. Does it work? So we presented at the AMS 999 in 2015, and we won the award for research most likely to change practice. So it does work, and we'll see some of the figures in a second about why we think it makes a difference. So we know that in the whole time we did this, NIAS was 3.2%, so I said 8.4 was good, ours is really poor. But we know that the CARU vehicle then has got survival discharge of 11.1. So we are making a difference, there's no doubt about it. But sometimes the problem is why we're making that difference. On average, our staff do 4 or 5 cardiac arrests a year, so they don't do very many. We know that the guys in the car are doing 15, 20. Some guys are doing 40 or 50 cardiac arrests. So we know that they're getting more exposure to that, and we think that makes a difference. Is it mechanical CPR? Is it the fact that we respond with multiple units? It probably is a mixture of everything. We're not sure exactly where it fits in. So although we use cardiovision and pacing, we don't do it very often, but we do it. But we do use a lot of mechanical CPR. So our view is it's a mixture of everything. And we're doing some work now from a research point of view about can we pin our finger on what exactly it is that's making that difference. What are we going to do then moving forward? We'd like to get direct entry to PPCI. We don't have that at the moment, so we can't do that. We're introducing the Zoll defibrillators, which have got a puck on it, so they'll give instant feedback on CPR. Developing a cardiac arrest strategy, and that's based around the European Resuscitation Academy. Thank you. Okay.
I'm going to invite Carl to come forward. Carl can explain who he is himself, but he's representing Wales today. Thanks, Carl.
This sounded a good idea until about 30 seconds ago. Good afternoon, my name's Carl Powell. I'm a Clinical Support Officer and the Cardiac Lead for the Welsh Ambulance Service. And I'm going to tell you what we're currently doing within Wales. And I'm going to put it in regards to the chain of survival. We heard the fantastic story this morning about Gregor. Gregor, who presented, who I've seen presented last year, but each one of our systems can show a survivor. And the survivor here, I chose this survivor because he's a personal friend, I know him, and he's a Scotsman, Eddie on the right. But he was saved by a community first responder, Mark, a call handler, Natalie, and Gary, the part of the EMT crew that called to him having suffered a sudden cardiac arrest while playing five-a-side football. So the chain of survival, we know how it works, we know how it should work. So I'm going to go through what we're looking at in Wales. Recognising cardiac arrest is obviously important. So we're doing work with partners in health and public health to try to get the message out. We saw with the school children this morning. Keep calm, ask for help, call 999. What we actually do then, we're working on. We do a multi-system dispatch to cardiac arrest. Nobody likes to see ambulances outside hospital, apart from our fleet manager, because he knows where they are. I stole that joke, Rich. We have a large community first responder team. This is a community first responder team from the Rhondda. We brought 3 community first responder team trainers up with us and a member of the community first responders. We have 200 groups in Wales with over 1,200 active community first responders. Like yourselves, we also use the fire service in Wales and other charities that support us in providing out-of-hospital cardiac arrest support. We are looking in the future at the Good Sam app so that we can activate staff responders who are off duty as well. Should move on. Okay, maybe it won't. Restart a Heart, October 18th. We've already got over 10,000 school children signed up to Restart a Heart. So we're moving forward and we're looking to go into 80 schools this year to teach CPR on this day. We have a wide range of public access defibrillators. We have over 1,200 public access defibrillators on CAD, and we continue to support the charities and the British Heart Foundation who continue to put these out to save lives across rural Wales. We recognise that there is a challenge in finding where these defibrillators are. So this is our Health Secretary, Vaughan Gethin. He launched an online reporting system for us last year, and also we started a Twitter campaign. You can recognise some people from the photograph. One of them is there. We ran a 3RU style trial, Welsh 3RU, Paul, sorry, within Cardiff for a 9-month period, and we saw ROSC rate at hospital going up to 34%. We're currently rolling out pit stop CPR training to our road staff. Hopefully it's not quite like that, but we're hoping that that will make a significant difference. We have just changed defib provider. We've gone to the Corporal's defibrillator. That allows us a telemetry approach to PPCI and post-ROSC care. And also it allows us now to give feedback for the first time to our responders and actually how they deal with a cardiac arrest, and they can get real-time feedback at the event. Moving on. Nobody will recognise what that is. That's actually a DigiPen. So we've changed our EPCR system, or we've changed our PCR system to a digital system. So it allows us to measure, collect data more easily, so that we can see what improvements need to be made and find a benchmark for where we are. Post-ROSC care, you see there on the screen, there's 3 PPCI centres in Wales that will take a post-cardiac arrest patient. One in Cardiff, one in Swansea, and one in North Wales. You can see there are huge areas left uncovered. So we now have an EMRTS system of medical retrieval by a doctor-supported helicopter system, running 3 helicopters in Wales, 2 with doctors on board. We're working with Welsh Government to come up with an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest strategy. I'm not going to say we're going to steal Scotland's, but we're certainly going to learn from it. Just to say thank you very much for looking after us today. I'm a proud Welshman, and that's a goat, not a sheep. Thank you.
David. David Hennelly's up next. Thank you very much, David, representing Ireland. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I'm going to give a couple of seconds for you to absorb that picture behind me because it has a lot of information on it, and I'll try not to let any of the others have so much information, but the key numbers are right at the bottom. So currently our ROSC rates at ED are 39%, with a discharge alive from hospital at 24% for our Utstein group. But you'll see just above that, it was basically 6.6, which is that, for all cases. Who am I? I am the clinical development manager for the service in Ireland. I'm going to take every opportunity I can to kind of put beautiful pictures up of Ireland and get you all to come and visit. I do a bit of surfing. I play on a helicopter, and I also prefer Irish whiskey to Scotch, sorry. So when I started looking at cardiac arrest care and how we might improve it, obviously we started to look at the experts, the people who have been doing it really, really well. And your mind starts to absolutely explode when this happens, because there's so many areas that you look at and you go, oh my gosh, how am I going to put some structure on this? So we started what we call the One Life Project. And our One Life Project basically puts all that stuff into streams. And the work streams that we basically have come through are 4 big areas. So the first one is about community response, how we as a service interact with the community. The next one is, the key pillar is about our call takers, how our call takers and dispatchers can work really well together. How our crews on scene can manage an arrest and improve what they're doing. And then finally, how we manage our data and share that data back to staff. The big thing for us, though, is Ireland is rural, really rural, really, really rural, okay? And we have to really engage strongly with community first responder schemes, so we've got about 150 of those at the moment, and we're trying to broaden out that base even more. But we're also then trying to link in with our really sexy firefighters and nurses and docs and the guards. I couldn't find any unattractive people there, sorry about that. But anyway, back to our control staff, who are absolutely phenomenal. We are currently running AMPDS version 13, and since the One Life project has come in, and we really started pushing and talking to them about the improvements they're doing and reducing that time to chest compressions, we've seen our rates go up nicely over the last 2 years in relation to bystander CPR. But then we have to focus on how to become a resus Jedi, how to actually do the work on the ground. And one of the big things I feel really strongly about is actually learning from other industries. So we took a lot of lessons from the aviation industry in relation to human factors and CRM, and an awful lot of the work we do now is focused really heavily on training our staff, or trying to train our staff around the principles of crew resource management and high performance. So we have to give them stuff. We want them to operate as a pit crew. We want them to have the high performance stuff, but people don't do that naturally. You have to train them to do that. So this is not just about training and pit stop training, pit crew training. It's actually about informing them and telling them about the benefits and giving them references, giving them pieces to work with, giving them checklists. So we provide our crews now with checklists to actually say, okay, this is what we're doing and this is how we're going to do it. The other things that we like to try to do, or what we're trying to develop, is basically the key elements around leadership training. So what we tend to do is now we talk to our staff about what's the important role you play at a cardiac arrest? How can you take a leadership stance? How can you make a difference in managing that team, controlling that team, managing the potential outcome of that patient? We're using robots as well. Okay, we've invested very heavily in mechanical chest compression, and we've got in excess of 280, I think it is, Lucas 2s out at the moment. So we're basically looking at a position where we're going to try to provide the option of mechanical chest compression for every cardiac arrest. But I really feel strongly that sometimes in a cardiac arrest you will reach a fork in the road, and it's about allowing your crews to make decisions and make decisions well. And we should be assessing our crews not just on their survival and outcome, but we should be assessing them on their ability to manage friends, family, all that rest. But we also have to be prepared for the ones we get back. So we do now link in directly with our acute coronary syndromes program. We take patients directly post-STEMI, post-ROS to PCI centers, and we're trying to improve those strategies. We're trying to teach our guys to celebrate when they do well, celebrate that fact. High fives, absolutely brilliant, but that's not in our culture normally. We don't do that very well. So we need to tell people it's okay to do that. It's okay to pat yourself on the back and say, well done. Post-arrest, what can we do? Feel really strongly about debrief, putting a structure together for debrief post-cardiac arrest. Fill out the bloody forms. Okay, we have a really good registry, out-of-hospital cardiac arrest registry. It's really, really positive for us, and that's one big thing there. And we're starting to feed back data to staff as well. Last one or two things here. I think it's really important that you accept high standards. You have to fight for your patients. Every single time you're at an arrest, fight for the standards to be high. Because at that moment, when they are actually at their lowest, you're the only one that's going to make the difference to them. All right? So thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, David. Who wants to go and visit Ireland now? Yeah, me too. There are no ugly people in Ireland. Very high word per minute count. You heard it first, Scas 16. Brilliant. Okay, so now we have John Wright. And thank you, John, for coming to represent Northern Ireland. Thank you, John, especially because you're standing in at relatively short notice after one of your colleagues wasn't able to make it. So double thanks,
Okay,
John.
thank you very much. I'm going to demonstrate VF with a pointer.
Oops.
Don't start yet. That's me. Thank you. This is going well. Thank you. Okay, so I'm John Wright. I've been in the ambulance service for 30 years. I'm a Manchester lad, been in Northern Ireland for 30 years and a paramedic since 1990. So I'm going to give you an operational perspective rather than a clinical one. This is tricky. Could we not have left it going? So the context for Northern Ireland, so we also are very rural. We've got 1.8 million people, which is a very small population. About 4,000 people have a heart attack in Northern Ireland every year, and about 3,000 of them have had a heart attack. I've lost the rest of the figures. So our current management of out-of-hospital cardiac arrest is AMPDS version 12, just going on to version 13. Our EMDs get awards for cardiac life saved, and so we're doing as best we can to bring on early CPR, which we know we can shorten for a minute. We send a paramedic to every cardiac arrest. All our RRVs are paramedic RRVs, and we use pucks with smart CPR and ETCO2. and we have mechanical devices out on trial. We have 234 pads mapped, but we know there's over 1,000 out there, but we've only really started this work. And we've got 12 CFR, Community First Response Teams. The challenges for us are the rurality, and as you can see, the cardiac arrests occur in urban areas. This is not new to any of you, obviously. Belfast has 600,000 people in it, and Altnagelvin has 125, so that's where our cardiac arrests occur. And we have about 4,500 square miles. We have a land border with Europe. And now I'm going to run out of time. We have a lot of sheep in the Sperrins, the Antrim Plateau, the lakes, and we have Loch Ness. So it's a massive deployment challenge for an ambulance service. So all the ambulances that you saw there were stations, but we don't have ambulances on them because they're always out. We have no money. We have never been given any money for CFR, PAD, or anything like that. We never had the big lottery funding. We never had CRDOs, etc. There's never been any money. Operationally speaking, this is warts and all presentation. As you can see, when we introduced Card 35 HCP calls, our Cat A calls rocketed up, and we have never recovered our performance. So we're actually having trouble getting to people. We're still using just red, amber, green, and purple. Challenges were on paper PRFs. So, I mean, there's a 3-month lag in getting them scanned. They're variable quality. There's a lot of paperwork involved. Big challenge in, we're actually demonstrating 17% and at the back of the field, if you like, for OSC. I'm not sure whether that's true or whether we're all reporting different things. And we're certainly gathering too much data, or lots of data that for varying reasons. I go out on a Thursday night, and my Thursday crowd think you can stick a cable into a plug and start somebody's heart. There is no community awareness. Well, there's little community awareness of where you can get CPR training. There's little willingness to do it, etc., which leads on to this slide. The majority of cases our crews find, 70% of them, are in a non-shockable rhythm. Okay, so 30% of them are shockable. So that's because the community doesn't know what to do to actually improve that. And that's really the underlying reason to have a strategy. In the meantime, we're doing quality improvement audits with our staff, with clinical support officers like Fergal here. And we've also, the latest amendment of the paper PRF is to put the traumatic arrest box in, because our 17% figure probably includes a lot of traumatic arrest calls. So in 2014, Dr. David McManus, who I'm standing in for, and myself were on a strategy group, and we actually published the community resuscitation strategy in July 2014, I think it was. And it's taken us a long time, but some money has now been offered to back that up. And the strategy is all about that coordination in the out-of-hospital, pre-hospital area to bring in things. The fire service are working with us, the police, all the different government departments, and the third sector and the voluntary sector, etc. So the money will pay for somebody like me, not me, and 4 of Fergal's. And they will be tasked with going into the schools, with doing the CFR recruitments and all the sort of stuff that you guys have all been doing lots of. And finally, for some reason, not sure why, I think it might be the EMDs doing the CPR advice on the phone. But we have actually shown improvement in our response to out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. But it's all about the community.
Thanks, John. Thank you. John, thank you very much indeed for showing us your warts then. That was great. So finally, last but not least, Colin Crookston, the Edinburgh contingent representing Scotland. Please. Thank you, Colin.
No pressure. It's not like Scotland to be last on in the Five Nations thing, is it? So, and as it was put very nicely by Steve earlier on, we're not at the football either, so it's nice to all be in one room. So I'm going to talk to you about second-tier responding, and then for a moment I'm going to be a bit more serious, because what we're talking about is strong leadership, hearts, minds and cultural change. And we have already said those who should be resuscitating, we need to change this mindset. They do not all die anyway, and all VF, and there's a mindset, should go home. should go home neurologically intact. That's where we should be at. So I don't accept that. So let's scrutinise this for a moment and say, why is that the case then? Why can't we change this mindset? And why do we have such a problem with bringing leadership to cardiac arrest? And it's when we scrutinise that, we look to other people for inspiration and find out why. So when we look to other systems, Seattle is a good system, but Seattle would not work in Scotland. What we can do is cherry pick the bits that we like and then bring it to Scotland and then put our badge on it and say it's ours. But they bring a second-tier response into the system, which brings strong leadership. But it's part of a chain. So these boys and girls that take the calls have to make that decision correct at the point of call to say, this is a cardiac arrest, I need to push the button and tell this person what to do, otherwise it's game over. When this person then sends the call to the dispatcher has to, one, photocopy ambulances because we don't have enough, so they're frantically trying to find ambulances, and we need to send the right response to that patient in a timely manner. Now, we've already seen today we need to do multiple ways of thinking about what are we dispatching to these cardiac arrests. I love first responders. I think they're awesome. Give yourselves a pat on the back. You do a wonderful job. You can go from watching Coronation Street to a cardiac arrest like that. I think that's brilliant. But you're not always there. So we have to look at other ways of getting people to the party. So looking at Scottish Fire and Rescue to come to the party, or Trossachs, or anybody else that's co-responding, Police Scotland, whoever, we need to be sending skilled people to go and do CPR, as well as a person who's on the phone trying to do it at the same time. Of course, it's nice to send an ambulance when the dispatchers can actually find one that's not tasked to something else, and we send them as well to bring the ALS section to this. But this is a coordination. This is like a dance or an orchestra's playing. It needs leadership. It needs not someone to take over what we're doing. It needs someone to coordinate what we're doing so the right thing's getting done at the right time, at the right moment. We're not talking about super paramedics. We're talking about people who are skilled enough to make sure that that team do absolutely the right thing at that moment in time. This is the picture that we keep putting up and saying this was what needs to happen. This lot still have a team leader. They all know what they need to do, but the team leader just makes sure that it's all done, because we've heard we go from 96 seconds down to 2 seconds. That's great. But a team is not just people who turn up. A team has to be trusted, and you have to have trust in the people that are there. Otherwise, you start to watch the system fall apart. People don't respond and don't do things as they should, which is a sad fact of life. So when people like Donald turn up as a 3IU leader, he needs to trust who's in the room and that they can do what they're badged that they can do, and he trusts them they can do that their thing really well. And again, when we talk about this leadership thing, he's bringing a way of thinking to this. He's acting like a leader, but actually he's telling people what we're going to do. He's not saying, I want you to put a cannula in. He's actually talking about this mental model and this bigger picture. We're not just following a protocol. This is about a performance we're doing here. This is what's going on in someone's head. This is where we're trying to go with this individual and take them through a pathway, but actually it's a decision-making model. And a leader needs to be able to stand back from the technical stuff and actually articulate to the rest of the team. So how do we know that this works? Well, one, we watch people go home, but actually we video what we do as well, so that we can audit it and find out how we improve our leadership response and make our chain as good as we possibly can make it. How do we get through all the barriers? We tell the world what we think our answer is, so we put our badge on it and say, it's us, it's what, we're awesome. But we still learn as well. And it's about getting that message out there. This is a quality improvement journey. This is not us telling the world, this is us saying what our part of this is, but we still want to be fed back. So what does the future look like? Well, we heard earlier about those who should be resuscitating, we should be sending more of those people home. Those who should not be resuscitating should have dignity in death at the end. But then again, moving forward, we've heard things like Sandpiper. Now, this is great because I've talked about an urbanised model. But unless you've not looked at Scotland recently, we've got a lot of hills and trees. And we've got islands that are closer to Norway than they are to Edinburgh. So how do we give them the same response as we do in Edinburgh? And I like run charts, I like graphs, but I rather look at the patient's eyes after their event and know that these people have gone home because something that you boys and girls have done. So on behalf of all the people in the Scottish Ambulance Service, I wanted to say thank you for sending all these men and women, husbands, wives, everything home. Thanks so much for listening.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much to all 5 of you for some really interesting insights into what it is that you do in your day jobs. And it's remarkable actually that although you're aiming at the same target and you're doing it from within similar organizations, you've all given us a very different perspective on the challenges of tackling out of hospital cardiac arrest. We've got time, I think, just for a couple of questions, if anybody wants to pick up on anything that you've heard in any of those talks. Yes.
Paul, I was just going to ask you a quick question about your cardiac arrest response unit, just to you. Your figures where you're getting 11% or so with your cardiac arrest response unit resuscitation and 3.4% overall, are you selectively choosing which arrests you go to, presumably, for your response unit, or are they just attending whatever is in
No,
that
we're
90
not. We're not
minutes?
selective. It's a tertiary response, so they'll just go to it as the third vehicle. So there's no selection criteria in that at all.
Anything else? Yeah, I think they're all still recovering from seeing your warts, actually, from the warts and all presentation. Thank you. Great. Well, ladies and gents, thank you very much. Can we have a big hand again for all of you guys for being willing to do a difficult presentation? Thank you.